I've been sitting with this for quite some time now, and I think it's time to finally start talking about it. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'll just let it all unfold naturally. I was on a Canadian Ringing Cedars call earlier this week, and a lot of really deep subjects were broached. And someone mentioned that if we are to create a child in the likeness of God, that you cannot do so with lustful thoughts. You're not supposed to be thinking of each other in a sexual way. Your sole focus is co-creation and your child. Today's sexuality is a far cry from that. And so trying to train ourselves out of lust is very difficult. And somebody responded to that statement and said, I'm also a man. It was also a very challenging concept for me as well. The thought of holding my beloved's hand without feeling any sort of arousal was almost like an impossible, unattainable concept, he said. But as soon as we got our space of love, it just sort of happened naturally. But before, he couldn't really conceive of that because he had been so conditioned. I chose to not speak on that subject because I felt the need to listen. But now I feel very, very much called to share my experience with that particular very touchy subject. It's hard to know where to start, but I grew up the way everyone else did, in a way. No, that's not true. I grew up very different than most people to start with. I grew up with minimal exposure to technology. I grew up living off-grid and eating from the land. I was prayed for on my parents' land. I was conceived on my parents' land. My mother ate from the earth, from the garden that they planted while she was pregnant with me, and ate from the earth while she breastfed me. I was born here on this land. I was mutually wanted by both parents. I was planned. Most people aren't afforded that, and I grew up with the wilderness as my backyard, interacting with real living creatures and my family, not staring at a moving box, the television. I grew up differently than most people. But then my parents got a divorce, and when I was 10, and I entered public school around my son's age, around age 7, and so I had something to compare to when I entered society, the fake world. Most people don't have anything to compare it to. I had something to compare it to. I actually grew up in the real world. So when I entered public school, the fake world, a lot of it didn't make sense to me. But I went with it because that's what everyone else was doing, you know? And even though I understood things differently than other people, I still had a very, very, very deep need to belong. And so I hushed a lot of my quiet inner knowing just so that I would fit in. Never worked, though. But I grew up similar in the way that when I entered the fake world, I grew up watching movies where love was based around pleasure-oriented sex, and lust was prevalent, and lust was rampant everywhere you turn. And so I assumed it was normal. I had lustful feelings of my own. And then when I was 13, I'd been in love with this boy since I was 11, and he was 16, almost 17 at the time. And after 2 years of loving him, because when you're 11, 2 years is a long time. After 2 years of loving him and wishing he loved me back, he told me he loved me back, and he took my virginity. And I told him at the time, I said, no, don't. I'm not ready. But he did anyway. And there was a part of me that kind of wanted it too. But my brain told me that it was okay because I loved him. And when we love people, we let them have what they want. That's how my brain justified it. But at the time, I didn't realize that I had had something taken from me. And I spent the next 20 years of my life trying to get it back. I became hypersexual, though I wasn't promiscuous. I always channeled it onto my partner. And every single time I ever entered a relationship, including the one when I was 13, I was with that guy from when I was 13 till when I was almost 18, even though he joined the military. He went off and I saw him twice a year. And I had all these people around me who flirted with me and who wanted me. I stayed faithful to him until the very end. But yeah, I feel the need to continue this story in a minute. It's going to take a long time for all this to come together, so I have other stuff I need to do for a second. So I spent the next 20 years trying to get that power back by hypersexualizing my partner. But to be fair, every time I entered a partnership, I went all in. I meant it. I decided, okay, this is the person for me. I'm going to make it work. I'm in it for life, period, the end. I'm committed. But every single time, it didn't work out. It ended very, very excruciatingly painful for me because I meant it. But nobody else did. Or they meant well. They wanted to mean it. But it always ended in heartbreak and betrayal. And it wasn't until I read Anastasia's words that I really genuinely began to understand why. Anastasia says that if a woman gives herself to a man for the sake of pleasure and not for the sake of co-creating a child, she cannot stop him from fornicating. And it is this pleasure-oriented sex that destroys families. She said the sex that we engage in modern society and modern times is a debasement of God, because God created sex for the creation of children, period, the end. And if you do it for pleasure and not for children, it's not satisfying. Therefore, if you do it and you're not satisfied, you're gonna seek satisfaction elsewhere. And I experienced this firsthand time and again, including with the father of my child. Now, when I met the father of my child, here I'd finally met someone with a sex drive as high as mine. And so it was great at first, but I was finally in the space where I was no longer having to chase. So that freed me up to simply be. But when I was on the receiving end of that energy, I was finally able to process just how gross it was. And when he would come on to me, I would find myself shut down. I would get so disgusted. And he didn't understand what was going on, and I didn't understand what was going on. He was just like, okay, she wanted me really bad, and now she doesn't want me anymore. Okay. I still loved him, and I still wanted to do everything else. But anytime he came on to me, my body literally shut down. And so it came to be that he began seeking satisfaction elsewhere. I would like to say here, when in the Ringing Cedars Canadian call, when this other person said, "Oh, I agree with you. I'm a man too, so it's hard for me too." I would like to venture to say that it's not just difficult for men. It's difficult for women too, because women have had to adapt to men's use and then discarding. And women have become like that themselves. I've had the unique experience of dating both men and women, marrying both a woman and marrying a man, not at the same time, at different times, ceremoniously, not legally, but either way. And I realized that women have been trained for centuries now to be the sex slave. That's how we contribute. But in doing so, we have gained nothing but betrayal. And so what women generally go one of two ways. They either decide, I'm going to be alone and I'm going to do everything myself, or they decide, okay, the man's going to try to take advantage of me, so I've got to figure out how to take advantage of him first. The man's going to try to dominate me, so I've got to figure out how to dominate him first. It's become this really sick game. And I realized that. I was like, wow, women are just as shitty as men now. And by shitty, I mean so highly traumatized that literally nobody knows how to have a healthy relationship with anybody. So I would disagree with the person who said that it's, oh, I'm a man, so it's difficult for me. No, it's, as a woman, I can say it's very difficult for me too. I made a video recently about how to forgive the unforgivable, and I talk about parasites, literal physical parasites, and invisible, energetic, spiritual and entity / parasites, aka the dark forces that infiltrate you with false beliefs. And this sexuality, this lust, acts as a parasite. It was inflicted upon me and instilled within me, but it was not me. And I'm learning now how essential it is to say no, to refuse to allow the parasite to govern me. Even among the Ringing Cedar community online, I see so many men combat the notion, saying, oh no, it's fine to have sex. Like, oh, you're misinterpreting it. Oh no, it's fine. These men are possessed. And maybe the guy who said, oh, it's harder for me because I'm a man, maybe there is something to that, because as discussed or as talked about in book 8.2, the men have been removed from the birthing process. The man contributes the pattern, hence the word paternal. The woman contributes the matter, hence the word maternal. But men don't understand just how deeply they're contributing to their child, so they just assume they're irrelevant. And that's why it's easier for men to objectify themselves and each other and women and everybody, because they've been removed from the birthing process. Because as a mom, first of all, when I became a mom, I was also attracted to females, but I went from, after becoming a mother, I went from seeing a vagina as, ooh, a pleasure hole, to, whoa, a portal from the ether. And I stopped objectifying the women around me, because I realized that that pleasure was not their inherent value. They had a much, much deeper value, and it was actually dishonoring them and seriously reducing and minimizing them to mere objects of pleasure. And I realized that my attitude toward them and viewing them this way was harmful. It's like, oh, I'm literally raping these women along with all the other men in their lives. It's disgusting. And I stopped objectifying my own self. Therefore, I stopped objectifying my fellow women. Men don't yet understand how important a role they play in the creation of a child. Right now, it's just like, oh, you contribute some sperm and that's it. Thanks a lot. Women do the rest. As a mother, I learned viscerally that my baby and I are a unit. Every single thing that affects me affects my child. Anything I do to hurt myself, eat too much sugar, have a glass of wine, watch a movie that creates distortion in my mind, anything and everything that I do that has a negative influence on me has a negative influence on my child. But when you're a unit with your family, it's the same thing with your husband. Whatever your husband's doing is going to affect you, which is going to affect your child. And that's where it got so difficult being in a relationship with the father of my son, because I was like, hey, can you stop smoking? You're not just hurting you, you're hurting us too. Hey, can you stop, blowing money on frivolous things, because the reason you're never here is because you have to make money, but then you blow that money on stuff. So I'm suffering, we're suffering being without you all the time because you have to make money, but then you go and blow this money on stuff you don't need. So I'm suffering so that you can have a sex doll, really. And our son and I are not having enough to eat so that you can go buy Starbucks and go treat yourself out to $100 dinners. And sorry, I shouldn't have said his name. My son and I are literally eating less than we should be so that you can eat enough food for 3 people. Things like that. You realize viscerally that to love is to take someone else as a part of yourself. And that means anything that negatively affects you affects the people you love too. Separation is an illusion. Yes, we are individual people with individual unique souls, and we are each responsible for our own happiness. But there is this undeniable truth that we are all not codependent, interdependent. We all depend on literally everyone else to some degree or another. And I'm going to have to finish this talk later because I'm getting text message after 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 text message, and it's really distracting me. So I'm going to have to finish this video later. I cannot speak for every woman, and I cannot speak for every mother. I can only speak for myself. Once I became a mother, I realized very viscerally that if I wasn't okay, my baby wasn't okay. And if my husband wasn't okay, that I wasn't okay. So I tried, in the only way that I knew, to try to convince him to take responsibility for his well-being so that I would therefore not be negatively affected. But unfortunately, in this world, we have grown accustomed to coercion and manipulation and lies, and we've had such a total loss of autonomy. And she talks about that, Anastasia talks about that in book 3, where you, a ruler of the universe, were born in your crib and essentially taught that you were stupid and you couldn't make any decisions for yourself, and abused from day one. And so you just accept the abuse thinking that it's normal. But it's not our parents that actually believe that. It's the dark forces acting through our parents like an invisible parasite that is trying to rob our autonomy. So in all of my previous experiences, anytime I approach a partner and say, hey, can you not do that because you're negatively affecting me? They're like, all they can think about is their loss of autonomy. And someone always trying to infringe on their free will. So they're like, no, I'm just going to do it because I just want to do it. It doesn't matter if it hurts you or not. Oh, it hurts you? Well, you should just go away then. I'm the kind of person I love with all my heart. And yeah, Giving up sex sucks, but what sucks a whole lot more is being a human being with a good heart and a soul, and having someone completely sacrifice that just so that they can go stick their dick in different holes. What sucks a whole lot more than that is being abandoned. It's usually not the man that's left with the child, which is probably why it's easier for men to fall into the lust trap, because they don't have that direct association. But I've experienced it. Giving in to sexual desire equals betrayal, equals unspeakable, unmanageable heartbreak, equals debilitating pain. Pain so bad that I want to die. So, no thank you. No thank you. I'd much rather give up sex and have a happily ever after. Especially now. I asked the universe to help me find the man in my dreams, the man I've always wished existed, the man I've always yearned for. And the universe helped me find him. And now that I have him, I really don't want to lose that. What modern feminism would have us believe, that we don't need no man, is not the truth. We are each whole unto ourselves, but Adam lived alone in the Garden of Paradise for 90 years before he got bored and lonely. Eve was made for Adam. Eve was a gift to Adam. Women are a gift to men, and vice versa. Yeah, you can go alone, do your thing, see the world, do all the things you want to do, but eventually, for what? Same thing with women. They can go do it all themselves and have all the fun and blah, 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 but at the end of the day, for what? What does it matter if you don't have your one? Now that I've found the man that I asked for, there's such tenderness in my heart. It feels so fragile. As in, knowing I could mess it up by submitting to desires that I've been conditioned to submit to. I'm tired of being motivated by punishment, by lack, by loss, I'm tired of my motivation coming from my wound. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, you better exercise or you're gonna die of diabetes, or you better follow the 10 Commandments or you're gonna burn in hell, or you better do your schoolwork or you're gonna land in jail. You know, I'm tired of doing things from an attempt to avoid punishment, because it's not sincere. I want to do the right thing out of love. I want to do right by my beloved. It's true, I also genuinely don't want to be betrayed again. That's true. But when I sit with that thought, like if he were to look at me in a certain way, and then I would reject him because I would be like, no, if I give in to you, then you'll betray me and my heart will get ripped out again. That's not where I want to come from, and that's not where I want to speak from. Even if it is true to a degree, I don't want that to be my motivation. I want it to be because I genuinely want to take care of him. And I genuinely want to be taken care of. I genuinely want what's meant for me, what God made me for. I don't think it's as difficult as we make it out to be in our minds. I think when we are in the dimension of love, it just happens naturally, as opposed to an addict trying to abstain from his addictions, trying to break free from his slavery to his addictions, or her. I'm not saying this from a place of accusation. I'm saying all this from a place of utmost compassion, because I've been there. I've been a slave to my addictions. I've been a slave to my sexual desires, and it has not led me anywhere desirable. So, if I want him to do the right thing, I've got to do the right thing as well. And that means not having a filter, and simply not letting sexual desire through. Yeah, it's difficult, but it's even more difficult living without the person that God made you for and the person that God made for you. Because otherwise, why are we here? They try to shame anyone who acknowledges their interdependence on the human beings around them. That's part of separating us. They try to make everyone hyper-individualized so that they can break us. Yeah, I was raped. Yeah, I was sexualized. But it's my responsibility and it's my honor not to stay in the hell that I was led to, and not to drag my man down into hell with me. It is my honor and my gift and my responsibility to lead him back to heaven, here, on this earth, through love that is true, and through love that is not enforced or enslaved or coerced, but through a love that is gentle and quiet and unobtrusive. Quiet, but the most powerful thing that exists. There's more I could say, but I think I'll just leave it there.